My name is Rich Schmidt. I'm here with Paul Bachand. We're at Recipe Restaurant in Newburgh. It's October 5th, 2020. Paul, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate this.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Let's talk about why you got into food.
Well, growing up, I think a lot of people have grown up around food. It really brings back memories of your childhood and, grandparents, aunts, uncles, family members that, embrace food, and it becomes a part of your family. It becomes a social part of the interaction with your family and eating and drinking, and it's just kind of been embedded in me since childhood. My parents were both in the food and wine industry for a long time. My mother was a baker, beautiful birthday and wedding cakes, pastries and such. My father was the cellar master for Inglenook back in the 70s. So it was just growing up around food and wine was just my norm, which was a lot of fun. It was impressed on me at a very young age, the importance of having family and a meal together. Mm-hmm. My parents, good friends, are still really good friends, have a restaurant operating in California called The Hobbit. That is still operating. I think it's third generation now. It's in Southern California. It's a great little restaurant. I grew up in the kitchen there, basically. When I was starting at about 6 years old, I was in the kitchen learning to make hollandaise and standing on milk crates and rolling out puff pastry with big Jeroboams of champagne bottles, and learning, the classics and the fundamental classics of French cooking from Chef Mike Philippi, who's still a very good friend of mine. He comes up to Oregon almost every year with his wife. They come up for the Salud Wine Auction and really have supported Oregon wine industry. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's kind of how I got started in it and never really got out of it. So.
Tell me about the kind of progression then for you, and tell me about how you ended up in Oregon.
When I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a chef. All the way from when I was a child, I knew I wanted to be a chef. So coming up to Oregon, I looked at cooking schools all over the West Coast, San Francisco, LA, Portland, and Portland just seemed to fit me, and I fitted in Portland. So it was just kind of an easy transition to, jump in the car right after graduation and drive up the 5 and start a new life in Portland, and went to Western Culinary Institute, graduated in 1995, and
So from there, take me through your kind of path to where you are now with Recipe.
Sure. After graduating at Western Culinary, I had worked all over Portland and Aloha, and I worked at the Reserve Golf Club, helped open that place. Worked there for a few years, and then I had an opportunity to move down to Central Oregon, lived in Bend from the late 90s to the early 2000s, which was a great experience. Worked at a wonderful little French restaurant called Cafe Rosemary, and snowboarded during the days and worked at nights, and it was a great experience. Worked there for about 3.5, 4 years, and then I just saw Bend changing a lot. The dynamics of the dining scene in Bend started changing. There was a lot of progression. Jody Denton had opened up Miranda, which I had worked for about a year. That was a great experience. And then beyond that, it just the dining scene kind of changed a lot. Mm-hmm. And I saw more opportunities up here in Oregon wine country, in the Willamette Valley. So I packed up and headed up to the Willamette Valley here.
You mentioned wine country. At what point does wine become part of the story for you?
Wine's always been a part of the story for me. Growing up in it, my father, again, he was the cellar master for Inglenook, so I was always surrounded by wine, not only at the house, but at the Hobbit, learning, mostly about California wines then, and then progressing into, I kind of fell in love with French and Italian wines over the years, and just saw such a tremendous opportunity up here in the Willamette Valley to plant my roots and see what happens.
as you became kind of aware of Oregon's wine industry, do you remember what your kind of early impressions of it were compared to California?
Yeah, I remember when I moved up to Portland in '94, I had driven out here, and back in '94, Newburgh and Dundee were about what they are today. Not much different, which is great, you know. It has changed a lot, but it's also still the same Oregon wine country that I first visited in '94. I recall I think it was '95 when I went to Tina's. I came down here and tasted wine for the day at Lang, and I remember Jesse Lang, you know, riding around on a skateboard. He was probably 10, 11 years old, and Wendy and Don were in their basement, and they had opened up their basement, and that was their tasting room. And Tori Moore was there also, and that was kind of my earliest impressions of Oregon wine country. Wasn't much else. Dined at Tina's that night, which was great. I mean, Michael, who owns it now, was my server, so he's been there a long time. David and Tina Bergen owned it back then, and you know, it was a great little place. So that was my first impressions of Oregon wine country.
What about the wine itself?
Wine itself, you know, it's much different now. Back then, I think there was that. They were still learning to ferment. A lot of winemakers were still learning to ferment. They were, especially the newer ones. You know, you had the pioneers, David Ouellette and the Ponzis, and you know, that had set the groundwork. And then, you know, all these new, young, energetic winemakers were coming in, and they were, you know, testing the waters and seeing what was working and what wasn't. I recall the wines being lighter than they are now. More traditional in style, I would say, for Pinot Noir. There are those, you know, I think, and that's what I love about Oregon Pinot Noir, is there's such a differentiation of styles of Oregon Pinot Noir. You have the lighter, more traditional styles, and then you have the you know, richer, bigger, kind of bolder styles that people are, you know, they're making for certain people's palates.
So tell me about this place and opening it. And I guess before that, we always talk about meeting Emily along the way at some point, and then starting this place.
Yeah, so after I moved up here, I worked at a few different restaurants in the area. I worked at the Joel Palmer House with Jack Zarnecki. I was in the front of the house selling the wine. I actually went there for a cooking position, but he offered me a front of the house position. So I jumped on it to get my foot in the door in Oregon wine country and to get you know, to know people. And so I worked there in the nights, and in the daytimes I was cooking at the Dundee Bistro, which was a lot of fun. That was 20 years ago, which is still a place that Emily and I love to go to. And then I worked at Willakenzie Estate for when Bernard and Ronnie LaCroute owned it, and I was their harvest chef for about 3.5 years. Doing a lot of their private dinners and cellar club events and stuff like that. Cooking for the team, cooking for the winemaking team, and just having a great time up there. It's a beautiful setting. It's one of Oregon's iconic settings as far as the vineyards and the history of it. So it's wonderful. And then I was presented an opportunity to open a restaurant in Sherwood called Hunter's Ridge, and that's where I met Emily. Worked there for a couple of years, and then decided that wasn't the place for me. And then just kind of did a few things here and there, and then came down and opened Farm to Fork in Dundee in 2009. Helped build that out. I also worked at La Rambla. I opened La Rambla back in 2004. Yeah, so that was a great experience. I basically came back from Spain, and I was a friend of mine who I went to culinary school with, who owns a little boutique in McMinnville, said my friend's mother's looking to open a Spanish restaurant, and so things just kind of was that perfect storm. And I met Kathy Stoller, and she offered me the position as executive chef, helped her build out the place, and that was a lot of fun. And then fast forward 5 years, it was Farm to Fork, and then after I left there, it was time to, I feel, go on my own and pursue my dream of owning a restaurant that I've had for a long time. So I just kind of was looking around, and I saw this building that was for sale or for lease, and it had a commercial kitchen, so it was kind of a plug and play restaurant. My business partner and I kind of built it on a dime store budget, with old chairs that we got from an old bar in downtown Portland and sanded them in my garage. I think I still have sawdust in my ear from sanding 45 chairs. And then we just, built it. Kind of was a homemade haircut of a restaurant, but it was a very quirky place at that time. You had to go outside down the little pathway to use the restroom, which was, it made Recipe what it is, kind of that quirkiness. So that was 2011 that we opened it up. Emily and I got married in that year too, so it was, a big year for us both, where we kind of see ourselves as cowboys. We just grab things and we go for it and we do things. So opening a restaurant and getting married in the same year was quite the venture, which kind of made us who we are today. And we still have that mentality and that vision of being just moving forward and getting stuff done. And then in 2016 we had the unfortunate fire here at the restaurant, which you can't mentally, physically, or emotionally prepare for something like that. Getting a call at 4:30 in the morning from the fire department to say that your restaurant's on fire, that's something that's you just can't prepare for. But again, it shapes you who you are and kind of helps you overcome challenges. So we, while we're sitting back scratching our heads watching the place burn and watching the fire department, put out the fire. Once the adrenaline wore off of that, we decided, well, what are we doing next? So we opened up Bar Do, which was down the street from here. We opened it December 28th of 2016. So about 6 months after the fire, we opened it up. Kind of a vision. It was a temporary pop-up to just keep the brand alive, keep the community fed, keep our staff employed. And then that kind of transitioned over about a year period, and we actually about 6 months, and we found that people wanted more than what we were offering. So, but we didn't have the money to put in to build a commercial kitchen in there. So our friend of ours let us lease his food truck. So we pulled a food truck out back and ran a POS system out there, and ran a little 40-seat restaurant. We could do 120 covers a night out of a food truck, and we were doing all of our classic dishes, our escargot, our gnocchi, our salads. We were cooking bistecca florentinas, big porterhouse steaks in a food truck, and plating them beautifully presented and bringing them, shuttling them inside, and it was very quirky, but it worked. We had a lot of fun with it, and again, it was that opportunity to overcome a challenge and to really push ourselves to see what we could achieve. And then fast forward 2 years, 3 months after the fire, we had our landlord was very, very gracious enough to basically retrofit and rebuild this restaurant where Recipe's been to our specifications. So she said, however you'd like it. Wow. I'd be happy to do it, with the intention of she was looking to sell the restaurant to us, which we're sure it's in our future, hopefully. And so we've reopened it in September of 2018, and here we are in October of 2020, and facing another challenge with COVID and all the beautiful things that presents. So yeah, it's
so it's been a really smooth ride, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
the way you laid it out,
right,
all planned,
right.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to come back to COVID in a second, but that was a lot of good stuff there. I want to kind of back up for a moment. Tell me about all the places you worked, coming out of school and then going through the places. Tell me about kind of developing your philosophy for what you wanted your food to be, what you wanted your style to be. And then tell me about, I'm also curious about, as you're working for all these different places, helping get places started, how do you fit yourself into someone else's vision when it comes to La Rambla or the spot in Sherwood, where you're trying to, sure, you have your own style, but you're obviously trying to fit someone else's as well.
Right. Well, it depends. I think the restaurant itself will define the type of cuisine you're cooking. Obviously, La Rambla was a Spanish tapas restaurant, so that's kind of, we knew we were going that direction with the food. Hunter's Ridge, is an American restaurant, so we knew burgers, steaks, big thick pork chops and roasted fish and stuff like that would fit in very well. It just kind of, I think food is defined by the person and by the chef who's creating it. they're going to have their own unique style and creativity that they like to showcase. So yeah.
So tell me about yours. What is your style?
We've kind of deemed it as thoughtfully prepared wine country cuisine. We definitely compose our menus in accordance with the seasons. We adapt to each season very enthusiastically. We don't believe in using tomatoes in the wintertime when they're not, at their best flavor. So we definitely, in the summertime, lighter dishes, more quicker cooking techniques, vegetable-based sauces, vinaigrettes, lighter cooking. And then, the fall and winter, which is, I think, every chef can agree, that's their favorite time to cook. You get into the kitchen and the slowing methods and techniques slow down a little bit, the cooking methods, and, dishes become richer and deeper in flavor and layered with more complexity. So, supporting local farmers and ranchers and all of our community of purveyors has always been, important to us, especially the wine and the food. That's kind of what really defines our vision and recipe. But we also reach outside of the community and outside of the United States. We basically like to get the best product that we can and really showcase it in a simple way where you really get to enjoy the primary flavors or the primary ingredient of that dish. So things that really enhance the flavors, not mask it or cover it up. And obviously the wine plays a huge role in that as well.
Tell me about that. Tell me about preparing foods that showcase Oregon wine specifically.
Oregon wine, it's nice because you have such a large gamut of styles of Oregon wine. You have the lighter, more refined styles. You have the bigger, robust styles. You've got some showcase the acidity more, some showcase fruit more. So it's nice to be able to work with those wines. And obviously taking into consideration the dishes, what you're cooking. If you're cooking a richer, heavier dish, you probably choose a wine that has higher acidity to kind of balance that out. That's kind of at the forefront of our thoughts when we're composing dishes and menus.
I'm curious about when you're choosing wine for your restaurant specifically. Obviously, you have a wine behind you here. What is it you're looking for in terms of building your wine list? How would you define your wine list here? I
think quality and value definitely guide our selections when we're composing our wine list. We like to offer, a good selection. We kind of know what our guests, what their target price point is, where the sweet spot is, where they like to spend. Then you get the people in here that really don't have a budget. They just like to spend. They really like to enjoy the wines. It doesn't matter the cost. I would say quality and value definitely guide our selection. Definitely want wines that showcase their terroir and where they're from, whether it's Eola Amity Hills or Yamhill Carlton or Dundee Hills. They're all very distinctive in their own way. So we like to, have a nice selection of each from each AVA.
Do you find yourself seeking out specific wines or winemakers, or do you find yourself mostly being kind of receptive to who comes to you?
Yeah, we have our favorites that we've always showcased, and but there's always a new one almost every day or every week or every month. Seems like a new person on the scene that's doing something different or better, or just having a lot of fun with it. So
someone were to eat here, what's one thing you'd want to resonate with them about the experience?
That's what we do. We've always kind of created an experience here for our guests. And I impress that on our staff very, very often, that we're creating an experience here. We're not just a restaurant for people to come and, we want people to come and just, whether you're in muddy boots and you just got out of the vineyard or the field or whatever, we want you to come in. We just want people to come in. When we built Recipe, my wife and I, Emily, when we were envisioning what Recipe would be, we were looking through an encyclopedia, and Recipe kind of stood out. And one of the definitions of Recipe is a method to attain a desired end. And we wanted this restaurant to be that method to attain the guest's desired end of a meal, which is sit back, reflect on what you've had, enjoy it, and leave here with a great experience. We wanted to create an atmosphere that was very reminiscent of the home dining room, to make people feel comfortable, whether they're walking just down the street from our neighbors that, the community right around here, or the person that's traveling from the far reaches of the world. So, yeah.
Tell me about the reception you've had, sort of built as you've built your brand here in Newburgh. How have you fit into wine country?
I've been here a long time. I've been here in wine country for over 20 years, and I think, adapting to and getting to know your guests and what their expectations and what they like is very important. And I think, again, going back to creating that experience, it's knowing the guest's name. It's knowing that, who likes what when they sit down, and they have to have their cocktails before they have their food hit the table, and just getting to know their dining habits. And people enjoy that because it shows that it's a personalized attention to them as our guest in the restaurant. So
you've talked about it a couple of times with that answer in before, but I'm curious about with hospitality. How would you define hospitality when it pertains to recipe, and how do you train people to give that kind of hospitality?
Going back, I think coaching, we like to coach our staff to impress that, you don't know what kind of a day a person's had, whether they're in a joyous, celebratory day that they've had, a family member had a baby, or they may have come from a funeral, or they may have gotten some bad news. I don't know. But when people come through the door, we want to make sure that they're welcomed. They're taken care of as our guests. It's very important to us. And I think our staff really, really embraces that. They've come to know my expectations, and I know they fit in with that or they don't. And we've had people that I think everybody has the best intentions, but sometimes it just doesn't work out for some people, unfortunately. But overall, I think we've, it comes with just who that person is, and getting to know our expectations and our guidelines and the standards that we have set for proper service, for a steak that's cooked perfectly, or a bottle of wine that's at the right temperature, or that cocktail that's mixed perfectly. So, yeah.
I'm curious, through your time in wine country, obviously the industry has grown up quite a bit since you've been here. I'm curious about the consumers and how, if at all, how they've changed when it comes to interacting with wine specifically. Do you have a different kind of clientele? Do they ask different questions? They're looking for different things now?
The clientele can be all over the board. Some people are just looking for a simple bottle of wine that goes really well with the food, and that's where they rely on myself or our staff to guide them in that direction. Because you have so many different consumers, and it's our goal to be able to adapt to their needs and their specifications on what they like. And so as far as the consumer goes, we have a lot of winemakers come in here, and they like to drink. Primarily, they like to drink, old world wines, Italian and French and Spanish and German, just because it's different. I think they really like to compare and really kind of lock horns with a wine from the obscure regions of France and varietals that maybe they're not too familiar with, or becoming extinct, or just have a lot of uniqueness to them. So,
tell me about the best advice someone's given you in regards to your work in food and wine.
Best advice. Best advice. Well, my wife impresses on me all the time that she really kind of has. I've adapted to the way that she feels, and I really respect and love the way that she makes the guest feel like they can have what they like, and that they're here. We're creating an experience for them, and that we'll do everything above and beyond to maximize their experience in every way. So.
What about for you, if someone were to ask you for advice on getting into the business, what would your advice to them be?
It's a tough industry. With the cost of everything going up, including, payroll and taxes and minimum wage, the margins keep getting smaller and smaller. But we try to find ways that we can maximize those margins, I guess. So I would say I would probably guide 9 out of 10 people away from it. Because I've seen a lot of failure and I've seen a lot of success also. And I don't like to see failure, I like to see success. Nothing pleases me more to have, say, a staff member that's been with us for 3 to 4 years. Their vision is to go out and start their own business, whether it's a clothing store or a retail shop of some kind, or even a restaurant. It's helping them along and coaching them and guiding them. It's a good feeling, and helping them any way we can. So, yeah.
Would you still get into the food business if you were just getting into it now?
Yeah, that's all I know. I don't know what I'd do if I couldn't cook anymore, if my hands were chopped off or whatever, I'd probably find something again. But at this point, we're kind of locked into it. You can take a guy out of the restaurant, but you can't take the guy out of the restaurant out of the guy.
So we had talked earlier, obviously we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic still, we're still dealing with that. Tell me about how it's sort of unfurled so far for you, on how you've sort of dealt with it so far, and kind of how you're looking ahead at coming out of it eventually.
Sure. Well, back to, say, January, when it was kind of, just arriving into the United States, we were kind of just sitting back and not sure where it was going to go. Nobody knew. And then when we hit, it was March, and Governor put shelter in place in order. Restaurants were ceased from operating, only on a level of to-go or delivery. We didn't do delivery because we didn't, we don't have the resources to do delivery. But, I kind of jumped into action again, being that cowboy, jumped into action and finding what we could do to sustain the revenue here and pay our bills. So we did a to-go program, which worked out very well. We did, every week we do a menu. It was about a 4-course menu that fed 2. It was anywhere from $65 to $75. And the reception was very, very well received in the area. We had the same people coming back sometimes twice a week. And it kept going and kept going. And it was inspiring to see that people really wanted to help out. There were so many restaurants that were doing it, and everybody was kind of jumping around doing different things at different restaurants, and really supporting the local industry of the restaurants and stuff. So it was as a challenge, myself and Emily included. We try to get out and get out and dine out and do to go as much as we could. But it's something you can't really project what's going to happen. There is no clear path on where this is going to go. It's been the year is kind of a double-edged sword, really. It's been a wonderful year in so many ways because the 3 months that we were in shelter in place, I was home 6 o'clock every night and able to spend time with Emily. And we would work hard. It would just be myself. When shelter in place hit, our staff was furloughed. They just knew there was no work here. I didn't want to take a PPE loan or a PPP loan because it just I didn't have the work for them. So I was just basically doing everything myself, cooking and packaging and creating the menus. And then I just decided I needed a dishwasher, so I called one of our dishwashers back. And that was really nice because literally, like I said, we were home at 6 o'clock every night. When I'm handing that last bag out to our guests, Juan's mopping the floor right behind me and finishing the kitchen, and we're out the door. And it was really nice to be able to have a summer that normally would never exist being in this industry. When you're a business owner or a restaurant owner, you're working 7 days a week. Even though you're going to be closed 2 days a week, you're working 7 days a week. So it was nice for Emily and I to be able to enjoy the summer together, really. She was working from home, and so we really embraced it and kind of looked back and said, wow, you know what, this is, it's kind of, we've worked so hard our whole life and work and little play. But now it's kind of, we're sitting back going, well, you know, we really need to embrace the time that we have together, because it's, we really enjoy each other's company and we have a great time. And we've been able to travel, you know, around the state this year and have a lot of fun, and, you know, go to the beach and quite often, and go camping. And so, yeah.
What about as you look ahead? Obviously, we're heading into winter here, and things are going to be still struggling. So what are you kind of hoping for? What's best case scenario? What are you planning for as you look ahead?
You know, it's just kind of take it day by day, week by week. We're obviously planning as much as we can, trying to come up with ways to, you know, sustain the business and sustain our staff. Whether it's the type of small events that we may or may not be able to do. You know, we're thinking about in France on every Sunday morning, there's the farmers markets. People are sitting around eating oysters and drinking muscadet. So we're thinking, you know, how can we create something like that through the wintertime? People come in and grab a quick dozen oysters and slam down a couple glasses of really nice, bracingly cold white wine, and you know, that's how you start your Sunday. So we're thinking of ways. You know, we've always done. In the winter times, we've always done our family-style dinner for two, which is always well received. It gets people in the door. It's you know, it's a 3-course menu that's for two for like $65. People have always enjoyed that. It brings people in the door in a normally slower time of year. But right now, we're just doing 3 days a week. We're only doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the restaurant. It's I'm just not seeing that Tuesday and Wednesdays are going to be profitable enough to be open. So we've just kind of, for the foreseen future, we're just kind of taking it as it is, you know.
So I want to ask you a little about the building. Obviously, you mentioned that it had burned and you were able to kind of rebuild it to your specifications.
Yep.
So tell me about what you wanted it to be. What was the building you wanted it to be? What is the kind of the function you wanted it to be?
Sure.
And is this what you envisioned?
It is. You know, back when we took possession of this in 2011, the place was very quirky. It was never really meant to be a restaurant, but the previous owners had put the commercial kitchen in, and we actually had 2 different kitchens in the restaurant. The main kitchen was about 10 by 12, so it was very, very small. Lots of little hallways. Everybody's, you know, bumping into each other, but, you know, the servers and the dishwashers and the cooks, you know, it's a very busy atmosphere. There's a lot of, you know, people knocking elbows and whatnot, but it was a dance that we all learned to do together. It was fun, but it's having the ability to rebuild it the way we wanted. Functionality and efficiency was definitely on the forefront of that. A kitchen that, you know, where we can see each other. Basically, we can talk to each other. We know what each other's doing at that moment. Is very important. So yeah, so it's we were able to provide upstairs dining, which is nice because in the wintertime we're not able to seat the patio. So that's our overflow, and our extra dining is upstairs, which we weren't able to do before because the staircase was built in 1889 and it was definitely not up to code for guests to go upstairs. So it was a very steep, very shallow tread on the staircases. So we were able to rebuild it to current specifications and codes, and now we're offering dining upstairs. And so.
What do you know about the building's history before you?
The building was built in 1889. It was a residence, probably until the 30s or 40s, maybe 50s. The main dining room was added on in the 80s, and then it was Chamber of Commerce. It was also a lawyer's office, and then when we took it over, it was a little wine bar when the previous owners. Converted it to a commercial space. It was a wine bar for a couple of years, and then we saw it come available and we jumped on it. So,
love it.
Yeah,
it's a cool space.
It is.
It's a very cool space.
You know, it's got charm. It's got history. It's these are the original floors here. This is the original molding. And we really wanted to preserve that because it's, it really showcases the house and its history. And I think it's really made Recipe what it is. Again, somewhere reminiscent of a home dining room, because this was somebody's home at one time.
So just a kind of fun question for you here. If you had to choose, what's your favorite dish to prepare, and what would you pair with it?
Wow. I mean, right now I'm really, Dungeness crab, really loving on the Dungeness crab. Oregon Chardonnay and Dungeness crab. We're doing a really nice Dungeness crab salad with charred serrano crema and some crispy seaweed and pickled onions. So that's really nice with, say a Chardonnay from the Eola Amity Hills that's, got that really linear, beautiful freshness and acidity that a lot of people are going for down there, that kind of nouveau style. Yeah.
I like it. Well, we'll take 3 of those. We'll just sit here while you get, That sounds amazing. You talked earlier about your kind of initial impression of Oregon wine. Tell me what you have seen change in the industry and kind of what it looks like now from your perspective.
The industry's changed. There's trying to think back 25 years ago. I mean, people grow up through it. They, like I was mentioning, Jesse Lang, at 10 years old riding his skateboard around. Now he's the winemaker up there. I see it changing. I see a lot of people being really excited about it, planting different types of grapes, trying different methods, whether it's a whole cluster fermentation or extended skin contact with like a Pinot Gris or the white Pinot Noir that people are doing. There's just a lot of experimentation going on in the industry, I think, which is a lot of fun. It's just like with food, winemakers get to experiment with grapes, we get to experiment with food. And it keeps your vision alive, and it keeps you kind of going and reaching for that next goal.
What do you think? As you look ahead for the wine industry, what do you, again, from your perspective, what do you see Oregon wine looking like over the next 5 or 10 years? I
think it's a really exciting time to be in Oregon wine country. There's new opportunities not only for winemakers, but there's new opportunities for chefs. Seems to be, I think this industry in this area is still very young, so I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think we're going to see, I think 3 years ago, Willamette Valley was rated the #1 wine region in the United States, so that's very exciting. That's a huge feather in our cap here. So I see it just continuing to evolve. There's gonna be more wineries, more winemakers, more restaurants. It's gonna be a slow transition. I think people are cautious, especially right now with COVID. So they're cautious about moving forward and not, really holding on to what they have and not overextending themselves. So I think, McMinnville is a great example of a town that's done such a good job. The dynamics that the McMinnville Downtown Association has established with the Dine Out in this summer, which they closed down the streets Friday through Sunday, was amazing. We got to enjoy that a couple times. There's definitely a great vision for McMinnville that I see coming to Newburgh shortly, and if I can help out with that, I'd love to, because I'm very invested in this town. I love it. We live 5 blocks from the restaurant. We love this town. It's a great town. So, yeah. I think overall, Oregon wine country will continue to climb up the ladder, and it's exposure around the world. I think the wines will continue to evolve and getting better. And
so obviously with the caveat that your story today has already kind of told us the danger of looking too far ahead into the future and planning, but I'm curious, as you look ahead for yourself and for Recipe, what do you see 5-10 years down the road?
5-10 years down the road, my wife and I, our vision is to be able to have that husband and wife team as operators. So that's something we're working towards. Creating that. I think back in the day, this area was the restaurants in this area were founded by husband and wife teams. You got David and Tina Bergen. You've got Richard and Nancy Gertz, who founded Red Hills Provincial Dining. You got the Ponzis, who built the bistro. So I think there's a good overall plan for us to, evolve here, not only here, but perhaps in other spaces around the valley or beyond. So I think the dining scene is right now it's kind of going a little more casual. People like that casual dining atmosphere. Food they are familiar with, I think people really enjoy the most. So it's that comforting food that in a very challenging time right now, we're finding that people like food they're familiar with and it's affordable and good value and good quality. So yeah.
Food and wine to make people happy, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
On that note, last question for you. We're going to get a little philosophical for you here. What is the role of wine in society?
The what?
The role of wine in society.
The role of wine in society. To drink it, to enjoy it, to bring people together around a table, to embrace it and really understand it and see how it works or doesn't work with food.
All right, that's all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't cover that we should have covered?
I think so.
All right, excellent. You guys good? Everything good? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate all your stories and thoughts.
Yeah, of course.
And we'll go ahead and let you off the hook.
Okay.